Well, we had ourselves a Monday morning Raw, not Monday Night Raw, from Perth, Australia. Finally, they're going to be back home in the U.S. for next week's show. I could do without these super early shows. But I thought that, you know, coming out of Crown Jewel, they would set some directions up for Saturday night's main event, which is the next big event that's coming up in a few weeks. And now all roads lead to War Games at Survivor Series, and that's what they would begin to build to. What I was not expecting on this show was a major shocking angle to close things out and potentially, you know, shake up or upend the entire picture for War Games and beyond, because it was a very important angle that closed Monday Night Raw here. And we have to start really from the main event, because the key match on this show earlier today was a number one contenders triple threat match. And the winner of this match would become number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. And it was CM Punk, it was Jey Uso, and it was LA Knight. And presumably the winner of that would wrestle Seth Rollins at Saturday night's main event, which is coming up on November 1st. We have this triple threat match, and of course, CM Punk wins, and we are poised for another Rollins-Punk match for the world title. And, you know, as the show is going off the air and the credits are rolling and they really want to make you think that, you know, the show is over, folks, right? Ain't nothing happening at this point, because Seth Rollins, the entire night, Seth Rollins was on cloud nine. He was as happy and content and calm as we have ever seen him. And so you had to think, if you really looked at that, like, okay, something is going to happen that's going to knock this man off his perch. And that was what Punk winning would do, right? Because he doesn't want to have anything to do with CM Punk anymore. But what's going to happen to this guy that's going to turn that smile into a frown? And I thought maybe we would, find out next week. As the show is going off the air and the Vision is out there after the match is over and they're celebrating after having laid waste to everybody. Punk and LA Knight got speared, right? And they're going off the air. And you see Braun Breaker is in the corner of the ring and he's got his back turned. And at that moment, I thought something's about to happen here. And Seth Rollins turns around and Seth Rollins eats a spear from Braun Breaker. And you could hear the gasp from the audience there in Perth. You could see the look on Paul Heyman's face and Bronson Reed's face as well, that this was something that they were not expecting. And then Braun Breaker gets to his feet. He looks over at Bronson Reed, gets right up at his face, and he makes it very clear. He goes, "You're either with me or you're not." And at that point, Bronson Reed decides to go up and deliver a tsunami splash to Seth Rollins. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are still together. And then there's the little issue of Paul Heyman, who is trying to stop these men. He's trying to, he's crouched down. He's checking on Rollins, and Braun Breaker brings him to his feet, and he says the same thing to Paul Heyman that he said to Bronson Reed. "You're either with me or you're not." And it took a little cajoling, and, Heyman had to mull it over for a little bit, but, Paul Heyman did what Paul Heyman would do in a situation like this. He tucked his tail, and he went with the path of least resistance because he did not want to get killed. And so he raises both men's arms. We have a new Vision. It is one person shorter than it was before. And that is how Raw went off the air, with Seth Rollins having been edged out of the Vision. What happened to Edge in the Judgment Day is what happened here effectively to Seth Rollins in the Vision. And the funny thing is, the Judgment Day turned out okay, actually, after they kicked out Edge. And it was a similar situation because I remember at the time it was a shocking thing. And I remember watching that going, boy, that happened awfully quick. And they replaced him with Finn Balor. And here we are, how many years later now? 2.5 years later, probably, and the Judgment Day is still a thing. But that's what that reminded me of, and that is how Raw went off the air with that major angle. We often I talk about it, but I know other people do as well. We talk about over the last several months, and really for much of this year, because I remember first talking about this in the fall last year. So we're going back a year, like around Survivor Series time. Triple H tends to play it safe. He plays it a little too safe sometimes, to the detriment, I think, sometimes of the product, where things just become very stale. And this has been an issue that I've talked about recently with the overall WWE product, where there's just nothing terribly exciting going on. And there's certain stories that you could kind of see where it's headed, and you can almost map the whole thing out in your head. But like the week-to-week television is just a drag, a lot of the time. And especially on the SmackDown side, in many ways, I've been just sort of begging for some sort of shakeup, and it looks like they recognize that there's issues because now they've added people supposedly to the creative team, and they recognize that there are problems that have to be addressed on Friday night. But that's been one of the marks against Triple H. Sometimes he leaves things to cook a little too long in the kitchen. And whether what we saw here at the end of this show, whether this was the plan all along or whether this was done out of necessity, this is the sort of thing that I like to see. This right here, what we saw at the end of this Raw show, is the type of thing that I am hoping to see. Not shocking people for the sake of swerving them, bro. Like, we're not looking to just shock people just for the shock factor of it, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. There's a difference between doing that and having these moments where you can really, truly shock people with something unpredictable. And the funny thing is, what happened here actually was very predictable. Just the timing of it was very unpredictable. There's a difference between doing it for the sake of doing it and doing it when you have a plan in mind for where you want to go with things. Even if it ends up being a plan B, it's like, okay, we're going to go with a plan B because there were extenuating circumstances and we got a good idea for where we're going to go with this, or we're going to cut out some of the middle part of the story here and get to the next chapter because this was the inevitable conclusion to the existing chapter, right? And that's what I'm hoping is the case here. Shocking people in a way that makes things on the show even more exciting. And you watch this and you wonder, why now? Why would they do this now? Was this really the plan? I want to read this to you from PW Insider. They posted this earlier today. Because the first thing that you think when you see something like this is he hurt? Is it an injury? Or is he pulling the wool over everyone's eyes like he did a couple of months ago heading into SummerSlam? But this is what PW Insider had to say. The angle on Raw earlier today with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker turning on Seth Rollins was necessitated by Seth Rollins suffering an injury at Crown Jewel over the weekend. The belief is that Rollins hurt his left shoulder landing while executing the coast-to-coast dive towards an upside-down Cody Rhodes, who was hanging in the turnbuckles. There is no official word on the nature of the issue, but Rollins was seen sporting a sling in a photo that he took with a fan on Sunday evening in Australia. We are told he will be undergoing testing in the coming days. And I feel like we've been through this before, haven't we? Where we hear about a potential injury to Seth Rollins, and we hear about testing is going to have to take place before they can diagnose what the issue is. And then we see how things turned out at SummerSlam. So if you are someone who is suspect of this, if you are someone who, because as I recall, Mike Johnson, there was conflicting reporting about the Seth Rollins thing back in July when it happened. And Mike Johnson, who is generally very reliable, on PW Insider, was adamant that Rollins was hurt. And as it turned out, Rollins was not hurt. And he cashed in his money in the bank and he won the World Heavyweight Championship. So you have to leave open the possibility that, yes, they are trying to work people, because they literally just did an angle a few months ago where they tried to work people. And I think by the time we saw it play out, a lot of people kind of had it figured out. Like, I don't know if I really, I didn't buy into the injury. But, a lot of people did. So you do have to leave that possibility open for sure. But if he is hurt, the brutal irony of Seth Rollins faking a knee injury just a few months ago, only to then suffer a very real injury. That is not lost on me. As I think about what's going on here, that was one of the first thoughts that popped into my head. Here he had an injury in July, supposedly that was going to derail his entire championship hopes and aspirations. He's got the briefcase, and then it was all fake, and he won the title. And now here we are with an injury, and we don't know if it is an injury, the severity of it. It doesn't mean that he won't be wrestling CM Punk at Saturday night's main event, right? It may be serious enough that he is not going to be medically cleared, right? We may end up having a championship vacated before long. Or maybe it's an injury, but not so severe that he can't, wrestle Punk or drop the title to Punk, right? It's Saturday night's main event. But here we are now faced with a very real possibility that what was fiction may now be playing out as reality. And it makes me wonder, Dave Meltzer in The Observer last week had the rumored lineups, the rumored teams for the men's and women's War Games matches at Survivor Series. And I talked about this on the podcast this weekend. And it makes me wonder, depending on what's going on here, did someone leak that to Meltzer? Because you look at what happened here, this would blow up, right? All those War Games plans. Well, what if it's not an injury? What if this was planned all along? And what if that information was leaked intentionally to mislead people? Because I absolutely believe the WWE will, at least sometimes, feed misinformation to people like him and others to try to swerve them and throw them off. If they have creative plans, I wouldn't, put it past them at all. Was it a case where there's a real injury and certain plans that were in place simply got bumped up, right? That's also a possibility. The teams that he had listed in The Observer, it was Punk, Roman, Jey Uso, Jacob Fatu, and how he would be worked into this, we don't know. And then a fifth spot that was open either for Jimmy Uso or LA Knight. That was going to be the babyface team. And on the other side, you would have the Vision. You would have Seth Rollins, you would have Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Brock Lesnar, and then Austin Theory. It's as if he pulled a name out of thin air. Talk about a name that we haven't heard about in a very long time. Talk about a name that has been a comedy goofball figure on the show now for the last couple of years. And I'm reading this the other day, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's on the heel side in War Games? You have to just do a double take when you read something like that. So how does this affect War Games plans? Does the Punk match happen now? Punk is the #1 contender. The belief is that he would be challenging on November 1st for the World Heavyweight Championship. Does that happen? Does Seth Rollins have to be stripped of the World Heavyweight Championship if he has a serious shoulder injury? Because I went back and I watched that spot, and you could tell he landed very hard on that shoulder. So it would not at all surprise me if he did something to his shoulder or his collarbone or something on that landing, because it was actually pretty impactful. When he landed, I mean, it was a spectacular move. It looked great visually, but he clearly, was in a position where he could have very seriously injured himself. Let's game this out and say that it's a legit injury and Seth can't even go and he has to vacate the championship. What do you do then? Who does CM Punk challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship? I have an answer. His name is Bron Breakker. That's who. Did you hear that crowd in Perth at the end of that segment when he picked up the World Heavyweight Championship and he held it up? The reaction that got. I don't know that these people really want to continue booing him, but you could continue to push him as a major heel, and eventually he's going to be a huge babyface. But when he picked up that championship, I mean, there was a notable reaction from the crowd. And we know, as far as, Bron Breakker is concerned, that he has been groomed for some time now as the future. From the moment that we first saw him walk in on 2.0, and if you remember the first person that he confronted on NXT 2.0, that first episode, remember the very end? It's like the very last scene of that episode was LA Knight, funny enough. But from the moment we saw him on that show, it was very clear they were grooming him to be the next big thing, right? The purpose of the Vision. Let's talk about the purpose of the Vision. When this faction was formed earlier this year, what was the real goal, the real end goal? What should be the real end goal of this group? This group is not meant to get Seth Rollins over. Seth Rollins has been on WWE television for 10 years. Seth Rollins is almost 40 years old. They have a lot of 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds on that roster. But Seth Rollins has been around forever. Seth Rollins is over. Seth Rollins is a world champion, former world champion. You don't need to get Seth Rollins over. The goal of the group was to elevate Bron Breakker and to a lesser extent Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed is not going to be the guy in WWE. Bronson Reed is not as young as Bron Breakker. Bron Breakker is the crown jewel of this group. It was always about getting him over. And the end goal of this was always going to be, or should have been, to have him break out of the pack and attack Seth Rollins, turn on Seth Rollins, probably end up being a babyface, but that was the end goal here. If there's a very real injury and they have to speed up whatever their plans were, then you know what? Break glass in case of emergency and move to phase 2. I'm here for it. I love this shit. I don't like the fact that Seth may have gotten hurt. I think that sucks and it's terrible for him, and I'm sure it ruins a whole bunch of plans. But my attitude about this whole thing is, because I see a lot of divided opinion about this, and this was rushed, and this was this, and this was that. I cannot come on here and talk about this show every single week and how boring some of these Vision segments can be, and how boring some of these Seth Rollins promos can be, where he comes out and he cackles and he does his catchphrase, I'm a revolutionary, I'm this, I'm that, right? It's the same shit every week. There are times when Seth Rollins can be really, really good and engaging, and there are a lot of times where I just tune out from what he's doing. And it's true, the Vision has not been around for even a full year yet, right? They're still, when you compare them to the Bloodline and the Judgment Day and some of the other groups in this company, they're still a baby, right? They're still very much barely out of the womb. But they've been around now for several months. And I'm already getting very bored of the Vision every single week. And they come out and they attack and they spear and they lay people out. And it's like, how many times are we going to see that before we either add a new member or we introduce some sort of chaos into the situation, or we introduce some sort of dissension within the ranks? We plant little seeds. The signs were there. The signs were planted, at the very least, they were planted in the opening segment tonight. Because in the opening segment tonight, Seth Rollins flat out said, I don't need these men. I don't need them. I can do this on my own. I won the World Heavyweight Championship on my own. I don't need them. But these are the men that I have brought in, and these are the men that choose to follow me. I chose them. They chose me. But that was the biggest seed that you could possibly plant, because how does a Braun Breaker take that when Seth Rollins is standing in the ring with him standing in the background going, I don't need these guys, right? I mean, the die was cast right then and there. So here we are now, all these months later. Yeah, I mean, the faction hasn't been around for that long, but if the idea is for this to use this as an opportunity to now elevate Braun Breaker a little sooner than they wanted to, good. Good. This company could use a youth movement. And since Breaker is clearly going to be the heir apparent to the throne here in this company, and he's super over, right? I mean, he's already over. So am I heartbroken that instead of waiting another 6 months or 9 months or another year for the inevitable, which we all know is coming, that they went to it or were forced to go to it a little quicker? No, I'm not. This is an opportunity for them, if this is a real injury, to take a negative and turn it into a positive. Strap the fucking rocket to this guy's back and launch him into the stratosphere. The fans are ready for it. This was the inevitable conclusion to this anyway. We're just skipping ahead by 2 or 3 chapters. Plenty of other stories that you can tell, but I, as a fan, am ready for Braun Breaker to be that guy. And I think he's ready to take the mantle and take over if that's what they choose to do. It excites me now, the possibilities of where this could potentially go. You take a negative and you turn it into a positive. And if Seth Rollins is hurt, and if Seth Rollins can't go, and he has to vacate the World Heavyweight Championship, that sucks for Seth Rollins. But you know what? You do CM Punk and Braun Breaker, and you put the World Heavyweight Championship on Braun Breaker. Why not? What do you have to lose? There are people talking about so many of the young talents in NXT. And like SmackDown, for example, right? They could definitely use some fresh faces on that show. You can't call everybody up, but they have people in NXT who are ready to be called up right now. But you'll hear people throw out like Javon Evans and stuff, right? And Javon Evans has had an incredible few weeks in terms of some of the matches that he's had recently. Sami Zayn, and then the match with Leon Slater. I look at a guy like that, he's 21 years old. And I say to myself, there's no need to rush him up, right? Let him simmer a little bit more in NXT. I'm not saying that youth movement, let's call up all the young guys. They have people on the roster right now on the main roster who would fit this, youth movement, who you can elevate. It's not just Braun Breaker. There are other people like him. This is an opportunity right here to try to make a new top guy. Great. This takes the vision now in a totally different direction. I see a new vision. I don't think the vision is going to be disbanded. They took the main ingredient, the lead character here, and they excommunicated him. And now they could add a new member. They could add a couple of new members if they want to, right? There's different ways that you can go with this. But I'm excited now. This was a great angle. It was unexpected. How many times do we watch Raw and we know exactly what's going to happen before it even happens? How could I sit here and complain about the fact that, oh my God, they're rushing this. They should have taken another 7.5 months to do this. Fuck that. No, I'm glad that they did what they did. This makes things interesting. That's all I ask for. Make the shows more interesting. Here's an opportunity for them to do just that. What are they going to do with War Games now? Fuck if I know, but I'm excited to find out. I have an idea, as to what they could do. You can still, War Games really doesn't have to change all that much if Rollins is hurt and can't go. Right? You're down one guy. There isn't a whole hell of a lot about that match that really needs to change if you really stop and think about it. Now, there is another possibility here. As excited as I am, right, about what they did and where it could go, there is another possibility that does not excite me. There is another possibility that I actually think would be fucking terrible. And this is what a lot of people are afraid of, which is that Seth Rollins is not hurt. This is all just a swerve. This is a swerve because CM Punk is #1 contender, and he is going to challenge now for the World Heavyweight Championship. And we all know how Seth Rollins feels about CM Punk, and Seth Rollins fucked him over at SummerSlam by cashing in his Money in the Bank. He fucked him over at WrestleMania by taking his best friend away from him. And so here we go again. The rivalry continues, and Seth Rollins is simply trying to throw CM Punk off his game by making him believe that Seth Rollins has no friends. He has no friends. He has nobody to watch his back now. He's all by himself. When in fact, the vision is still very much together. And not only that, they may use this, and this is possible. This could be where that Austin Theory name comes from that Meltzer had in The Observer. This could be an opportunity where Braun Breaker's not going to help him, Bronson Reed's not going to help him, right? You think that he's out of the vision, but then Austin Theory shows up. And he provides Rollins with the assist, helps him retain the World Heavyweight Championship. Then we see Breaker, then we see Reed, and Theory is with them, and they all have a nice laugh at CM Punk's expense. And maybe that's why CM Punk, heading into Survivor Series, is in a position where it's like, you know what, I'm willing to put my feelings and issues in the past aside with someone like Roman Reigns so that we could join forces to take these fucking guys out. That is a possibility. And I'm not even against adding Theory to the vision because he's another one of those young guys who just hasn't really been given an opportunity. Not in the last year he hasn't anyway, not under Triple H. But the idea that this is a swerve, coming off of a swerve they already did a few months ago to me, would be incredibly fucking lame. That does not excite me at all. In fact, I think that would be horrible if that's what this ends up being. So you want to change my mind real quick. If this ends up being a swerve, I am not a fan of that. Again, I'm not happy that the guy may have gotten injured, but, you take a negative and you turn it into a positive. And I just, again, I like the idea of Braun Breaker now leading this crew. And if they add some new people, you could add an Austin Theory. You could add an Oba Femi to a group like this. And I'm not saying Oba needs to be a part of a faction. I would rather see him go wreck shop on SmackDown on his own. But if you wanted to, and now you have a real crew where it looks like, okay, these guys, these younger guys are really taking over now, right? That excites me. The idea of this being another Seth Rollins swerve to just get back at CM Punk is fucking lame as shit. And I really hope that's not the direction that they're taking this in. But nobody really knows for sure right now what's going on. We're going to wait and see if we get more reports about Rollins, if he has these tests, and if it is in fact a serious injury, a legitimate injury. It looks like a legitimate injury right now, but there were a lot of people who thought it was a legitimate injury in Saturday night's main event against LA Knight, when he got hurt. Although I will say, if you go back and watch what happened there, it didn't look like anything out of the ordinary. When he landed on that springboard moonsault, he grabbed his knee. Here with that coast to coast to Cody, he did land very hard on his shoulder. It is not hard to believe that he would have gotten legitimately injured on that move. But man, what a brutal turn of events or twist of fate if it actually turns out that after faking an injury, he ends up with a legitimate injury. I got more to say about this and the rest of this show. This is your Raw on Netflix review. It is Monday, October 13th, 2025. I am the Solomonster. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here. A little earlier than usual here on a Monday, but yeah, there was no need to wait until 11 o'clock at night to talk about this show when it happened at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I figure 8 p.m. is the perfect time. Like and subscribe. Super chats are open. You will see them popping up on your screen. We got some new ones. They're down in the description below if you want to check those out. I do want to give a quick shout to the review that I did. I was with all of you just the other night. Last night, actually. There's been so much wrestling of late. I don't even know what day of the week it is. TNA Bound for Glory was last night. And a fun show. I had fun watching this show. There was some stuff on there that really made me scratch my head. And there was some stuff on this show that I actually really enjoyed, including that man, Mike Santana, for the first time winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Full review up on the channel right now. There aren't too many TNA reviews, but that was my third pay-per-view this year that I have reviewed. So if you want to go check that out, you can do so. It is elsewhere on the channel. Let's get into this show because we ended with the Vision. We started with the Vision. The Vision made their way out to the ring, minus Becky Lynch, who did not make the trip to Perth. By the way, that's another aspect to this. Becky Lynch was a member technically of the Vision as well. And so with Seth Rollins being booted from the group, if he is, that would mean Becky Lynch is also no longer a part of the Vision. People might look at this and go, well, what do you do with Seth Rollins when he comes back, right? Or even if he's not gone for that long, right? But they just wanted him out of the group, but it's legit. It's not a swerve. Rollins could still be a heel. Just because he was kicked out of this group doesn't automatically make him a babyface, right? It makes him a fucking loser because he formed this group and he got kicked out of his own group. But that doesn't automatically mean that when we see him again, he's going to be a babyface. He's got Becky Lynch as his wife, who is the top heel in the women's division on this show. And I like the interactions between the two of them as heels. So you could have Seth and Becky doing their thing, completely separate from the vision, and they could all still be heels. I'm not saying they will be, but just because this happened does not automatically mean that Seth Rollins is going to have to team with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns should never, ever team with Seth Rollins. Why the fuck would they team? Right? That doesn't necessarily mean Rollins is going to be, bosom buddies or reluctant allies with Roman Reigns, when he comes back. So just keep that in mind. They came to the ring, and Rollins had on his giant crown jewel championship belt. We were already 10 minutes into this show, by the way, and Rollins had yet to say a single word. Rollins did his usual spiel, and the crowd sang along. How riveting. Are there people that are really upset I'm floored by this. I'm floored by how many people seem to be upset or just like ripping the booking apart here. How can you do this instead of playing it? Do you really want to continue to see these segments play out for another year and a half? Like, are there people out there who legitimately wanted 18 more months of this fucking bullshit? Who are these people? Show your face. So he comes out, he's doing his same catchphrase. Everyone's singing his song. It's the same shit that we always see from Seth Rollins, of course, when he comes out here. And the fans have been calling him a wanker for several days now. So he referred to them as wankers, and they all cheered. Rollins put over Paul Heyman and called himself a blessed man for being in his presence. Rollins gave him a hug. Fans chanted kiss. So Rollins kissed Heyman on top of his bald head, and they all cheered. And Rollins said, ain't no shame in that, baby. Goes, that's love. Rollins turned his attention to Braun Breaker, and he said that there were questions about his potential 6 months ago. Rollins said Breaker has flourished ever since they joined forces. I love this idea that, like, Breaker wasn't really doing well until he linked up with Seth Rollins. It's like Rollins rescued him. Like, he was doing just fine before he joined this group, but like that's kind of the narrative that they're going for here. And he says Breaker is the future of this industry. Yeah. The future is now. Then he turned to Bronson Reed. He said the fans cheered for him, sang his name. Reed was on the shelf 6 months ago, he said. He could not have beaten Roman Reigns. And Rollins said that with his vision, he gave Reed every bit of knowledge that he had about Roman, and Reed destroyed him, and Rollins called Bronson Reed the new tribal chief. So Rollins called himself the greatest world heavyweight champion of all time. People like to say that there are levels to this, he said, but no one is on his level. Unlike all the other greats lately, Rollins hasn't needed any help to achieve his success. And the crowd chanted, bullshit, which of course that is bullshit. Rollins said, for example, Roman Reigns needed the Shield and the Bloodline. Cody Rhodes, he needed him to beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania last year. Rollins beat CM Punk and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania on his own. I guess he's forgetting when Paul Heyman took his fist and most of his forearm and jammed it up Roman's ass, like he was giving him a proctology exam. That's how hard and high he really got up there at WrestleMania. I would think that had a little something to do with him getting a win there in that match. So Rollins said he didn't need anybody, and he won the world championship on his own. He didn't need Braun Breaker. He didn't need Bronson Reed. He didn't need Paul Heyman. He chose them, and they chose to be with him. And then Rollins closed with his go-home line, and they shot fireworks off. And, looking back at this in hindsight, the signs were there. The signs were there for what they were going to do at the end of the show. And the signs, honestly, if you think about it, have been there for a few weeks now. Yeah, the way that they have been teasing this dissension, right? This drama of sorts with Rollins the last few weeks heading into Crown Jewel. Like, I have to win. I have to beat Cody Rhodes, and what happens if I don't? And Heyman is like, well, you're going to lose everybody's respect and they're not going to believe in your vision anymore. And just the way Rollins was acting, it was almost like he was going to turn on Heyman, right? So there have been some teases there for a few weeks now with this whole thing. But yeah, when he said that, I don't need this person, I don't need that person, I did it all by myself. How does that make a Braun Breaker feel? How does that make a Bronson Reed feel? They're just standing there. And we see them every single week coming out and interfering in each other's matches. Like it's just been on repeat for the entire summer. And yet this guy is not giving them the credit that they feel they deserve. They've been, holding up their end of the deal. So again, little seeds being planted for what was to come. In the back, Rusev confronted Penta. He didn't like that Penta was getting an Intercontinental Championship match ahead of him against Dominic. But it was okay, because Rusev said he spoke to Adam Pearce and he would get the winner of tonight's match. And then he told Penta he has not forgotten about being super kicked last week. Penta called him a pendejo, and then he left. And then as Rusev was staring at Penta, walking away, behind Rusev off in the distance, walking towards him, was Dominic Mysterio. And when Dominic realized that Rusev was standing there, he immediately turned around and he walked in the other direction. It's like that meme of the little kid, which I'm sure you've all seen, where the kid walks into the room and then whatever he sees is like, ooh, and he turns the other way. Yeah, that was my favorite meme. That's Dom in this segment. Speaking of which, we had Dominic Mysterio defending the Intercontinental Championship against Penta. I should point out, man, I wish I would have had the photo to show you guys, but Dom has a new tattoo. And it's not just a tattoo, he has a new neck tattoo. And if you thought Cody's neck tattoo was something, this is even bigger. This is in an even more prominent place than Cody's tattoo on his neck. Because Dom's tattoo is on his throat. And it's a giant lucha mask. It's like the entire length of his throat. I don't even want to know how that must have felt getting that tattoo. How much must that have hurt? People will get their girlfriends or their wives' names. Well, first of all, don't ever get your girlfriend's name tattooed on your throat. Your wife, I can understand. Your girlfriend, yeah, that's not a good idea. Actually, it's probably not a good idea to get anybody's name tattooed on your throat. You could just ask the Undertaker about that. But man, how must that have hurt? The only thing I could think that would be worse is Bam Bam. Bam Bam Bigelow had the tattoos right on his skull. But I've actually heard that people, when they get like Goldberg, for example, he has, it's like a barbed wire tattoo, right? And it goes around, I think, his bicep. And I've heard that that's actually more painful than you would expect, especially on the underside of your bicep. I guess it's got all the little nerve endings there or whatever. But yes, Dom has a lucha mask now on his throat. So there were lots of Dirty Dom chants throughout the match. He was very over here in Perth. There was a great spot where Dominic charged at Penta outside the ring. Penta, though, gave him a back body drop onto the announce desk, and he went flying. After a break, Dom drove Penta into the ring post and then followed with a suicide dive into a tornado DDT. Then he drove Penta into the barricade, and Penta, he kind of half landed in the front row. There were a whole bunch of little kids in the front row, and he almost took them all out. So Dom grabbed him and quickly pulled him back over. So at that point, he tried to take a count-out win. Penta, though, was able to make it back into the ring. They went to their second commercial break after this. So we already had about 5 or 6 minutes, I would say, straight of commercials. We were barely 10 minutes into this match. So Dom did Eddie Guerrero's springboard senton, and the crowd called for another one. So he did. He tried for another one, but Penta moved and hit a flying crossbody off the ring post out to the floor. Dom went for 3 amigos back inside. Penta, though, blocked it and hit the move instead. And there was some light boos because the crowd wanted Dominic to complete the trifecta here. So Penta dodged a 619, and he hit a Penta driver for a near fall. Penta went for a Canadian destroyer, or I guess a Mexican destroyer. Dom countered, though, into a Michinoku driver for a 2 count. So at this point, here comes Rusev. He's marching down to the ring, and he looks very angry. I don't think I've ever seen Rusev look anything other than angry. I don't think I've ever seen this man walk down to the ring with a smile on his face. He's always angry about something. And I do wonder if that interview that Darby Allin gave to Ariel Helwani on his show today, when he talked about there being, over the years in AEW, egotistical wrestlers who don't want to lose and how they've cut out the cancer. I do wonder if Miro is somebody he was alluding to there. He was alluding to wrestlers that have come and gone in AEW who were very unwilling to lose matches. He didn't specify who he was talking about, though. Everybody was assuming, like in the comments, that he was referring to CM Punk, but he and Punk, I know, they're friends. So I don't think he was referring to him. But anyway, Rusev, he's marching out to the ring. Even though in the previous segment, he told Penta that he was already guaranteed a championship match against whoever came out of this with the title. He was guaranteed a title shot by Adam Pearce. So it really doesn't matter who wins this match unless he just really, wants to get his hands on Dom more than Penta. Then I guess you could sort of explain it. Penta, though, wiped him out with a dive before he could even get involved. Dominic used the distraction to go over. He was over by the timekeeper outside the ring. And he grabbed the ring bell hammer. And he took the championship and he threw the championship into the ring. It was a decoy, though, right? It was a distraction. So the referee saw the championship. He said, what is this doing in here? And the referee grabs the title and he goes to put the title outside the ring. And when he does so, Dom takes the hammer and he hits Penta in the knee with a hammer. Now, Penta has knee pads on. So you would think, it's not like he hit him as hard as he possibly could. You would think that this would absorb, much of the impact of the blow, but evidently not. And Penta sold it. So he's in the ropes now, and Dom is setting up for a 619, but he shoves the hammer into his boot, and he comes off the ropes and he hits the 619 with the hammer in the boot. So he hammered Penta, and he knocked him out cold. He went up top, he hit a frog splash, and he got the pin to retain the championship, and the fans actually cheered. Yes, Penta was hammered, says Sidro. Yes, he was. He was hammered. He was hammered. I don't know if that would be a wellness policy violation, but I'm surprised Adam Pearce is not hammered. He talks about how much he needs a drink every single week. But Penta was literally hammered here in this match. I thought as a match, this was good. I knew Rusev was getting involved the minute that Penta super kicked him on the show last week. And I told you guys, I said, they're doing a championship match in Perth next week. Gee, I wonder if Rusev is going to get involved. And so you had to know that he was going to get involved here. But you also knew that Dom wasn't losing the championship anyway, because we've had these reports about him wrestling John Cena in a title match at Survivor Series. That was the other rumor from the Observer last week. This is going to be very interesting, by the way, in a couple of months to look back on this and see how much of those reports that Meltzer put out there were accurate. Yeah, because he had the report about Gunther being John Cena's final opponent, Dom wrestling Cena for the title at Survivor Series. He put those War Games teams out there. He did mention Rollins and Punk being earmarked for Saturday night's main event, which looks to be the case. So we'll see. We'll look back on it in a couple of months and see how much of it was accurate. So if Dominic is defending the championship against Cena, then obviously he's not losing the championship before then. But I will point out to you that Dom is now 3-1 in matches, singles matches, against Penta this year on TV. He's been pretty dominant over Penta. Penta got a win over Dom once, and that was way back in April. And he's been on a losing streak against this kid ever since. Asuka. Let's talk about Asuka. We hear from Asuka here on the stream almost every week at this point. Asuka confronted Kairi Sane backstage, and she was pissed after they lost to Rhea Ripley and Io Sky at Crown Jewel. And Kairi apologized, and she said that she would fix it. Asuka told Kairi that she would fight Rhea Ripley tonight. She, being Kairi, would fight Rhea Ripley. And remind everybody that she, being Asuka, was the one in charge. Asuka was about to go leave. Kairi, though, she peels her hair back and they zoom in on her forehead. She's got this huge, like, knot, big lump on her forehead. And there it is. There it is. That's what she sounded like here in this segment. She was very upset. She was very upset. So anyway, she's got a lump and a bruise on her forehead. And Kairi says it happened because she tried to protect Asuka in that match. And in response to this, Asuka did not want to hear this. And in response to this, Asuka smacked the shit out of Kairi. So much so that you could actually hear the crowd audibly gasp when she smacked this woman across the face. And then she yelled at her in Japanese. This woman is like a real-life anime villain. Like, I'm loving this heel Asuka. There is nothing redeeming about her whatsoever. Like, she's bullying this poor girl who is under her thumb, right? I mean, she is just being mentally and psychologically abused every single week. And because Kairi is, you know, she's likable. She's a likable character on the show. And Asuka just doesn't give a shit. She will bully this woman around. She doesn't care. She'll yell at her. She's great. I'm really digging heel Asuka. You know, she was hurt. She was gone for a long time. And now she's really, you know, as a character on this show, she's really starting to pick up steam. So then after this, we had Rhea Ripley with Io Sky in her corner. One-on-one with Kairi Sane, who had Asuka in hers. Kairi has her old music back. They gave her her old babyface pirate princess entrance theme back. There's a trend developing here. I talked about this on the podcast where on Friday on SmackDown, the Street Profits had their old babyface music back. And who was the other one who got their music? Oh, Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura. There's Asuka. Hey, Warrior 408. Thank you for the sub. Asuka says, thumbs up. That might be the first time I've seen Asuka in a good mood in many months. But yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura made his return on Friday, and he also had his old entrance music back. So now Kairi had hers. I hope we see more of it. I hope we see more of people not only getting their old music back, but getting just new music in general that is not composed by Def Rebel. I have to put that little caveat out there. You know what they should have done? They should add that sound effect to the beginning of Kairi's entrance theme. Since everybody has something, they have like some kind of sound bite or whatever at the beginning of their song. I think they should put that one at the beginning of Kairi's song. And that way, every time she comes out, as soon as they hit it, like it's like, you know, she doesn't know where it's coming from. She thinks it's coming from Asuka. As if this poor woman is not suffering enough. I think they should add that to the beginning of it. Oh, man. Yeah, Def Rebel. That's right. DEAF. They must be. Have they not heard some of the music that they have composed here? So anyway, I hope that some of these wrestlers get some new music. I'm looking at you, Bayley. You know, Bayley has had this character transformation. I think it's about time they transform her entrance music. So Asuka caused a distraction. So Rhea Ripley confronted her outside the ring. Io then attacked Asuka. So Kairi wiped out Io off the apron. Asuka then laid out Io as they went to a commercial break. Later on, Kairi dodged a charge and Rhea Ripley posted herself, shoulder first. Kairi followed with an insane elbow to a standing Rhea Ripley outside the ring. And then Kairi went for a very ill-advised spear. And Rhea Ripley simply caught her and hit a razor's edge. Every time she hits this woman with a razor's edge, she's so tiny, Kairi just gets folded up like a piece of paper. So there was a battle on the ropes that led to Kairi hitting a double foot stomp. Kairi then flew off the top rope. Rhea caught her out of midair and hit an electric chair facebuster. Asuka tried another distraction. Io, though, got rid of her. And then Kairi tried a roll up, only for a 2 count, and Ripley followed with a riptide. She picked up the win. Good stuff here from these two. And I would say the best singles match for Kairi since she returned to the company. I can't think of a better one that I've seen from her. This was not as good as what we got in the main event a few weeks ago with Rhea and Asuka, but this was still good. So after the match, Asuka attacked Io. Ripley set up Asuka for Riptide on the announce desk. But then up from behind, here comes Kairi, and she's got a kendo stick, and she starts blasting Rhea over and over repeatedly with the kendo stick. Asuka then gives Ripley a DDT onto the announce desk, and they pose over her dead body. So they have to be aiming for Io Sky against Asuka at Saturday night's main event. I mean, I think that's the plan. You could do it on Raw, I guess, but to me, that's a big enough match. You don't want to wait for Survivor Series because they'll probably be in War Games, but you got to do that match, I think, on that show. You know, that's a special show. Special match belongs on a special show. I will remind you that in the Crown Jewel post-show, Stephanie Vicaire named Rhea Ripley as someone that she would like to face next for her World Heavyweight Championship. I don't get the impression that they're going right into that. This just doesn't feel like the time for that, right? You could save that for later. But it is at least something that they are seemingly setting up for in the not too distant future. Women's War Games, I mentioned that. I imagine that these women are going to end up on opposing sides in a Women's War Games match. And I don't remember offhand what the rumored lineup was that Dave mentioned for it. I'm pretty sure all of these women are involved, supposedly involved in War Games, though. You know, if you're kind of looking ahead at what comes next and what's Rhea going to do, and that seems to be the destination. So anything they do with Rhea and Stephanie, honestly, I don't see them doing that until next year. You know, whether that's the Royal Rumble or whether that's WrestleMania. Jimmy Uso met with his brother Jay backstage. Jimmy could not believe that Roman Reigns was blaming them for his loss to Bronson Reed at Crown Jewel. Jay said that maybe they should start listening to Roman and start looking after themselves. And Jay said he appreciated Jimmy's help, but he had to focus on tonight's triple threat. Jay was about to say something. Jimmy cut him off, and Jimmy knew that Jay thought that he couldn't handle Bronson Reed tonight. And Jay tried to explain, no, I don't believe that, and that's not what I meant. And Jimmy told him, you know what? You handle your business, and I'll handle mine. And the fans in the arena, they cheered for Jimmy standing up for himself. Look at that. Big Jim. Big Jim was out to the ring next, actually. Big Jim went one-on-one with Big Bronson Reed. Big Jim is not quite as big as Big Bronson Reed. So he came in here at a severe disadvantage. Plus, he had the injured ribs. Because his ribs were all taped up. He got speared through the barricade at Crown Jewel. So he attacked Reed as soon as he entered. Reed, though, punched him in the ribs. And Jimmy was too weak to hit a Samoan drop at one point. So he hit a running hip attack. Jimmy followed with a whisper in the wind for 2. And he tried a Samoan drop. I don't know why you would try that. When you have injured ribs that are all busted up, that just seems like a really bad idea. And it was. And he collapsed under the weight of Bronson Reed. Reed followed with a back-to-back running sentons, and then he hit a tsunami splash. All it took was one. He pancaked him, and he got the pin. Bronson Reed, I mean, you did really, honestly, truly believe that Bronson Reed was going to beat Roman Reigns on Saturday and then lose to an injured Jimmy Uso on Monday. Now, did you? I'm going to have to revoke your wrestling card if you actually believe that. Now, Braun Breaker greeted Bronson Reed in the aisle after the match was over before spearing Jimmy in the ring. Reed helped up Jimmy, and then Breaker speared him again. Breaker was about to spear Jimmy through the barricade, but Jay ran out to make the save for his brother. He managed to clear the ring, but then he ended up eating a corner splash by Bronson Reed in the process. So after all of this was over, they're in the ring, and Jimmy thanks Jay for the help, but they were clearly not on the same page. And Jay did not look very happy. Jay never seems happy these days. So the story was, Jimmy showing some heart, coming in at a handicap with the ribs, trying to go it alone. It didn't work. And then after the match was over, still trouble within the bloodline, right? They're playing this story out. Lyra Valkyria met Bayley in the gorilla position. Valkyria told Bayley that they were teaming up tonight, but it would only be a one-night thing. And Bayley didn't believe her. She's looking at her like, yeah, you're kidding me, right? She was being delusional. She says, you're kidding. And she was very excited, and she went through the curtain and out to the ring for the next match, which was Bayley and Lyra Valkyria against Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez. I know it doesn't sound exactly like it is, but, you know, if Bayley's coming out, you got to get a role model. Role model. May as well be a fucking robot voice when this woman comes out. She hasn't really been the role model in forever. Is that even really her gimmick anymore? Why is she still coming out to this shitty music? I honestly think that's one of the biggest problems about Bayley's presentation. It has to do with the fucking music. It just goes to show you how important music is to a wrestler's presentation. I think it'll really breathe new life into just the whole thing, the whole package, if they just get her some new music. I'm just worried that it'll be worse than the music she has now. So Valkyria and Bayley, they worked well as a team early on. They did a bunch of double team spots, and it was one spot too many because Bayley flung Lyra into Raquel on the outside, but Raquel caught her and gave her a fallaway slam into Bayley. So Judgment Day had control over Bayley through the commercial break until she hit Roxanne with a Bayley-to-belly suplex and made the hot tag to Valkyria. Judgment Day cut her off pretty quickly, actually. They cut off her comeback attempt, and Roxanne brought Bayley off the top rope with a Hurricane Rana. So the heels continued to dominate Bayley. Perez hit her with a springboard moonsault for a 2 count. Valkyria checked on Bayley, and she cleared the ring of the heels, and she goes over and she's checking on Bayley and to try to smack some sense into her and just get her fired up, right? Because things were not going well. She hauled off and she slapped her across the face. Now, this wasn't an Asuka slap to Kairi, but she smacked her in the face, and this seemed to wake up the other, personality of Bayley, and she starts laughing and cackling. Bayley wiped out Roxanne and Raquel with a suicide dive. She slammed Rodriguez into the ring post and clotheslined her over the barricade, and then she hit Perez with a flying elbow drop in the ring, followed by a rose plant, and she pinned her. So Bayley and Lyra pick up the win. The way the announcers talked about this, they sort of proposed that Lyra finally figured out how to manipulate Bayley. And maybe manipulate is too strong of a word, but they made it out as if Lyra finally figured out what buttons she has to push to bring out, I guess, the killer instinct in Bayley. Like if they're in trouble, it's like, we got to find that other Bayley, and so she knows what to do, right? Just smack her in the face, and apparently that just wakes up the other side of Bayley. It doesn't feel like a turn is coming to me anytime soon, and I don't really think there's a need for it, because this is the most interesting thing they've done with Bayley in a very long time, right? You don't really know which version of her you're going to get at any given moment. And I think what I see here, I see a tag team championship match in their future, right? So we know Charlotte Flair and Alexa, that should be their tag team name. Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, they're going to be defending the women's tag team titles soon against Sol Ruca and Zarya. And they'll probably retain the titles. And I think what I see here is them building to a Charlotte and Alexa against Bayley and Lyra match for the women's tag team title. I actually think that would be a hell of a match. So that's the direction that I see here. Keep these two women together, maybe even put the titles on them, let them get a run with them. Eventually you make a decision about what you want to do. I mean, there have been reports that WWE is very high on Lyra Valkyria and they have big plans for her in 2026. I don't know if those plans involve the tag team titles and Bayley. I would like to think that they could set the goals for her a little bit higher than just the women's tag team titles. But that, to me, is the more likely direction for them. Now, backstage, Paul Heyman was told by Seth Rollins that Rollins could feel something special coming on the horizon. Heyman touched Rollins' arm at one point, and Rollins actually winced. I don't know if you noticed that. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, they entered the room, and Rollins told them that this had been the most incredible weekend of his professional life. He said the birth of his child, marrying his wife, and seeing the growth of Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Those are his proudest moments in life. He didn't mention main eventing WrestleMania. I thought in WWE, that's like the most important thing in the world, even more than your kids. That you got to headline the granddaddy of them all. Right? There's nothing bigger in life than headlining WrestleMania. I would give a kidney to main event WrestleMania. He didn't mention that here, though. So Rollins said that this gentleman is the mountaintop. He told Breaker and Reed to breathe in that rarefied air. Said he felt like they were close to taking that next step, and he said that he was on cloud 9 and no one could knock him off the mountaintop. You know, you could kind of tell that there was some great misfortune headed this man's way. He was too happy. No heel should ever be this happy. He was so full of himself. He was gloating the entire show, how perfect everything seemed. We should have known then that something bad was about to happen to this man. During a commercial break, there was a replay of Maxine Dupree beating Becky Lynch by countout on the show last week. Kathy Kelly interviewed her on the concourse in the crowd, and Maxine thanked the fans for their support. She also announced that she would be fighting Becky for the Intercontinental Championship in her hometown of Sacramento next week. Elsewhere in the back, AJ Styles met with Adam Pearce, and Styles called Crown Jewel an incredible night, even though he lost. Pearce thanked him for it. Dominic interrupted, and he was not happy about having to defend his title against Rusev next week. He said he seems to be the only working champion around here. And Styles said, you know what? He has a point. And he convinced Adam Pearce that Finn Balor and JD McDonough, who never defend their fucking titles, should put their World Tag Team titles on the line next week. And Pearce liked that idea, and Dom realized at this point that he had fucked up by getting involved here. But it was AJ's idea. Why don't you make a tag team title match with me and Dragon Lee? AJ Lee taking on Balor and McDonough next week for the tag team titles. So Pearce made the match official. I will mention here that there are 3 championship matches that they've already announced for the show next week. That tag team title match is one of them. And then there are 2 intercontinental title matches. So Becky defending against Maxine Dupree, and then you have Dominic defending against Rusev. So all of that has already been set up in advance for Sacramento next week. Speaking of champions, because everybody's got a belt these days, Jackie Redmond was in the aisle near the stage. It was one of these kind of quick hit type interviews. She brought out the brand new Crown Jewel champion. Also the women's world champion, Stephanie Vicaire. And Vicaire felt blessed. She mentioned that she was the first, and I didn't realize this, but holy shit, she is the first woman in WWE history to win 4 championships, 4 different championships in the same year, which is true. She won the NXT North American Championship earlier this year. She won the NXT Championship earlier this year. She won the Women's World Championship. And then she just won the big Crown Jewel belt. So it goes to the point that I made the other day as far as like, is it too much too soon? Like that's a lot of success. That is a lot of success for one person to have. And we're not even done yet. Like this year is not even done, honestly. So if they're not careful, I'm just saying, as long as they have some good opponents lined up for her, some good stories, then she'll be okay because she's very popular. But they have handed a lot to her this year, more than they have for any other woman in a single year in the history of this company. So Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez interrupted, and Perez was pissed off because she thought that she should be the world champion right now. And if she was the world champion right now, then she would have been the one challenging for the Crown Jewel Championship. And she would be standing here with that big belt instead of Stephanie, because she pointed out she has a win over Io Sky, which is true, right? That episode of Raw where we were supposed to get Naomi defending the title against Io ended up being Io and Roxanne beat Io. So I'm actually glad that they called back to it. And Stephanie told her to stop crying and do something about it. Perez said that she would. on her own time. So I was wondering if they were going to circle back around to that fact. I'm glad they did. Then we get to the main event of this show, which was a triple threat match. Number one contender triple threat match. The winner would get a World Heavyweight Championship match. It was CM Punk, it was Jey Uso, and it was LA Knight. LA Knight has had a lot of main events on Raw over the last few months. Not a lot of wins. In fact, I think in terms of main events, he's won maybe 2 of them. I believe 2 out of a lot more than 2. You could add another loss in the main event for LA Knight here tonight. But one of these men would be challenging Seth Rollins for the world title, presumably at Saturday night's main event. Jey quickly cut off Punk with a super kick. Knight went after Punk outside the ring, and Jey wiped him out with a dive. So they went to a break 90 seconds into this. Punk knocked down both men with a dive off the top rope. Punk did his usual comeback spots. He took down both men with a combo bulldog and clothesline before hitting LA Knight with the Randy Savage elbow drop. Knight avoided a GTS. Then he gave Punk an inverted DDT. He gave Jey a regular DDT. He hit both men with his diving elbow drop off the top at the same time. So it looked like shit. Like, don't do that again. They went to another break. After that, Jey gave Punk a super kick. He followed with an Uso splash on LA Knight for a near fall. Knight came back with the BFT to Punk. Jey broke up the cover, and then he shoved Knight into the ring steps. And so with Punk still down in the ring, Jey went up for an Uso splash. Punk got his knees up, though, on the landing. And Punk followed up with a go to sleep. And when he hit this man with the GTS, he actually knocked the grill out of Jey's mouth. You saw it. It was sitting there on the mat. And actually, Jey looked up at Punk and said, "My grill." Immediately, "My grill." And Punk, he pinned him, and then he picked it up. So at least I'm sure he handed it back to Jey Uso. He knocked the man's grill out of his mouth with that GTS. So CM Punk is the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. But wait, we're not done yet, because here comes the Vision. How many times have you heard me say that over the last several months? Here comes the Vision here after this main event. Usually they're in the main event, but if they're not in the main event, then usually they end up coming out there to either interfere in the main event or in the post-match. And so this was no different. Braun Breaker sprinted down to ringside. He obliterated Jey in the aisle with a spear. And then LA Knight also took a spear on the outside. Then the Bronze swarmed CM Punk in the ring, and Breaker speared Punk, and Reed hit a tsunami splash. Seth Rollins is standing in the ring over CM Punk, and he tells him that he'll never be champion. And then they threw Punk out of the ring, and the Vision posed. But notably, Braun Breaker, he was in the corner, and he had his back turned. And you could kind of tell, like, even though he had his back turned, like, it looked like he was sort of getting all fired up. But we got a Triple H special here because they put the producer credits up. They put the graphics up that you would usually see when they're about to go off the air. They wanted to make you think the show was over. And then as soon as Seth Rollins turned around, Braun Breaker had also turned around, and Braun Breaker ran down Seth Rollins with a spear. And this crowd had no idea that this was coming. The reaction that it got, the looks on their faces, they were going for a shocking moment. They gave them a shocking moment here. Paul Heyman was stunned. Bronson Reed had a look on his face like he wasn't expecting that to happen. Breaker got up in Reed's face, and he told him, make a choice. You're either with me or you're not. And Reed molded over for a little bit, and he made his choice. And he dragged Rollins over in position for him to go up top, and he came off the top with a tsunami splash, and he squashed Seth Rollins. So Paul Heyman, he goes over to Rollins. He's kneeling down beside him. He's trying to beg these men to please stop. Don't do this anymore. Braun Breaker grabs Heyman, and he brings him to his feet, and he gave him the same ultimatum that he had given to Bronson Reed. You're either with me or you're not. And he also picked up the World Heavyweight Championship, and this is where the crowd, cheered when he did so. And Heyman, he struggled with this for a little bit, and then he made his choice, ultimately. He raised the arms of Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. And of course he did, because Paul Heyman is a rat bastard who is going to go in whichever way the wind blows. Whatever direction the wind blows, that is the direction that Paul Heyman will go in. Now, I want you to remember how these two even came together, okay? How did Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins as a pairing even come to be, right? Paul Heyman did not voluntarily decide that, you know what, I'm going to be the oracle for Seth Rollins, right? This was not some master plan that they hatched at the beginning of the year. It was a favor. It was a favor that was owed to Seth Rollins. Paul Heyman was effectively coerced into aligning with Seth Rollins, or bad things were going to happen to Paul Heyman. So as an act of self-preservation, he did what he felt he had to do. And so he linked up with Seth Rollins. He didn't have any loyalty to the guy, right? It was a relationship born out of convenience for Paul Heyman. He has no reason to be loyal to Seth Rollins. That's how this relationship started in the first place. And so the first chance he got, he dropped this guy like a bad habit. You know, but this did not come off like some well-laid plan that Heyman knew about or that he hatched. This felt like something where Braun Breaker decided to take matters into his own hands. You know, he decided to go rogue and call the play, and he made a choice, and he went up to them and was very clear in what he said. Like, you're either with me or you're not. So you got 5 seconds, you know, make a choice. And they made their choice. And that is how the show went off the air. But I mean, the timing of this is very interesting as far as CM Punk now is #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. So we know that match is going to be taking place soon. They have a few weeks before we get there. If it's a legitimate injury to Seth Rollins, and he was certainly, throughout the show. And I had people who went back and told me that even at the end of the match with Cody on Saturday, it looked like he was favoring, I think, his left arm. We have to wait and see, you know, if there are going to be tests done, an MRI or X-rays or whatever, you know, what do they say? I feel like deja vu. I feel like we were literally having the same discussion a few months ago. We were talking about his knee, right? And then he went on the, what show did he go? The Rich Eisen show. And they asked him about it, and he said, well, you know, the swelling is such, we can't really get a read. We had tests done, but it's hard to tell. We got to wait for the swelling to go down. So there are going to be some things to look for in the days ahead, right? If Rollins comments on this, or if we hear reports about this, like what kind of information comes out? Because if we don't get a lot in the way of information, that would make me very suspicious. Usually with like serious injuries like this, we'll hear something. And we really didn't hear anything last time. And that should have been a giveaway that something was amiss, you know, something was going on. So look, I cannot sit here and tell you that this is not some elaborate work, and that it's not the Vision trying to swerve CM Punk and screw him over again. And I think that would be awful. I just think that would be just fucking lame. We just did a similar type of angle only a few months ago. To come right back and do something like that again with a phony injury to me is just lame and lazy. That doesn't excite me. What excites me is that, okay, this happened. How are we going to pivot? How are we now going to recalibrate and try to keep with what our long-term plans were, but we got to shake things up a little bit and go in a different direction? And I want to see how they respond to this. What they did tonight, again, like in a vacuum, this angle that they did, it caught me off guard. I enjoyed it. It's like the John Cena heel turn in a vacuum. If you just judge it based on what happened that night at Elimination Chamber, it's one of the greatest angles they've ever done. Right? I mean, because you have the biggest star of this era and one of the biggest stars in the history of the company at a time when nobody was expecting him to go heel, actually turning heel and standing next to The Rock. And oh my God, this is going to be so great. We got like the Hollywood, you know, the Hollywood heroes over here. And these guys are going to run roughshod over this company. And who's going to save WWE? Right? Everyone was coming up with all kinds of ideas of what that could be. As it turned out, it sucked. And I think when we look back on that angle at Elimination Chamber, as great as it was, history will not be kind to it because the follow-up just wasn't there. The moment that we got here was great. The key, as always, is in the follow-up. Where do we go from here? Is this legitimate or is this not legitimate? I can't say for sure. I don't know. I tend to believe that there is a legitimate injury here. It may not be too serious, but it was clearly serious enough that they felt they had to go in the direction they went in here on this show. But it just makes things so much more interesting now. Like even the idea that maybe Braun Breaker takes Seth's place, however they want to explain that, right? I mean, they could always have a match and crown another #1 contender if the title has to be vacated, and you do Breaker and Punk. But I'm just saying, like, if the idea is to really go all in now, don't wait until 2026 or 2027. Because we know it was coming. We have Paul Heyman telling us every single week, oh, this guy's going to headline 5, 10 WrestleManias. Okay, great. We already know that. But you know what? We're going to bump the timeline up a little bit. Okay, cool. Cool. I'm all for a youth movement in this company. I'm all for getting some new faces up in that top main event scene. Because it really has been the same guys, if you think about it, like the same basic core group of guys now for many, many years. But the weekly television is so sterile and it's so predictable every single week. I like a little bit of unpredictability injected into the scene here. I think that's great. Maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, we'll revisit this conversation and I'll say, boy, that was really stupid. Having now seen what this was and where they've gone with it, boy, was that fucking dumb. But all I can tell you is what I saw here on this show. It got me excited for what's to come as we head into War Games and then beyond War Games. I like it. I'm all in favor of it. You know, shake this Vision shit up. You wanna just have a new version of it and introduce a new member or two? Cool. And there's any number of names that you could come up with here to throw in there. But I just think a swerve would be a very, very, dumb thing here to do. Austin Theory being reintroduced to television as the newest member of this group is something that I think is probably going to happen. If there is, it has to happen if there's truth to that War Games report. But is that a situation where Braun Breaker is now leading the Vision, or is Seth Rollins still pulling the strings? It excites me more if it's Braun Breaker leading this group. Just watching him at the end of the show, like, you're either with me or you're not, right? It's a badass line, right? This is a guy, no one wants to fuck with this guy. Seth Rollins comes out and says that. It's hard to take him seriously when he's coming out there dressed up the way he's dressed up every single week. I can't take him seriously. Braun Breaker, I could take him seriously. They got a few guys like that on the roster. Obafemi is another one, right? I'll take what he says seriously. I don't want to get in a fight with this guy. We need more guys like that. We need more badasses on TV and roles like that. So I'm excited to see where this goes. There was no Twitter poll. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I didn't even think to get one up. So I don't know what you guys thought of the show. I enjoyed the show overall, but really this show is all about that closing angle. Everything else on this show was more or less overshadowed by what we got there at the very end. The stuff with like Asuka and Rhea and Io, I'm still enjoying that. But it was all about that closing angle. Take a look at your super chats here. Here's where you could let me know what you thought of this Raw show. See, it is badass, right? You're either with me or you're not. You're either with me or against me. Every time he comes charging down that aisle with that spear, like he's already in midair and he's still like 10 feet away from the guy. He did it again to Jey Uso, or not Jey Uso. He did it again to, no, it was Jey Uso. Yeah, no, it was. Like, he had to be a good 10 feet away from him. He was already flying through midair. Just tackled him right there in the aisle. It's just such a great visual. Replacing Seth with Austin Theory would be a massive downgrade. I'm not saying he should lead the fucking group. I'm talking about getting some more young talent in there instead of another 40-year-old guy. You know what the problem is, I think, with some people? I think some people are just so brainwashed and accustomed to the way the WWE does television and tells stories that when they break, even if it's just for 1 week, even if it's just an isolated thing, when they break from the formula, they can't wrap their head around it. Or maybe they just don't have enough faith in Triple H and WWE to follow up on it in the right way, which is totally understandable. That I get. I don't exactly have full faith in them either. But, like, it's okay to break out from the formula every now and then and shock people, you know, as long as you have a plan for where you want to go with things. I can't believe that there are people out there who would be upset that they did it now instead of, you know, 6 months from now, let's just say. Like, we all know where this was headed. I'm okay with speeding up the timeline a little bit. Braun Breaker is ready. Like, if they're ready, he's ready. And I'm ready. I'm ready to see him in that role and see what he is capable of. Hey, Death Scythe, what's going on, man? He says, I was thinking on the Raw after the Royal Rumble, says, AJ could announce at Elimination Chamber that his contract comes to an end and he wants his final opponent. His contract does end, I think, around that time, so I can't imagine they don't extend him out enough to get him a WrestleMania match, though. But he says that he wants his final opponent to be the man that he faced for the first time at Ring of Honor, second year anniversary show 22 years ago, and the man who eliminated him to win the Royal Rumble, Chicago's own CM Punk. Interesting. So he's proposing that the WrestleMania match would be AJ Styles and CM Punk. You know, I could get behind that, but I am almost certain CM Punk is going to be involved in the World Heavyweight Championship picture. But like, if you think about like a potential final opponent, if that was his retirement match, potential final opponent for AJ Styles, like Gunther should be an option. I know everyone's like Gunther for Cena, Gunther for AJ. People have Gunther fatigue. That is a match they've never done, and I think that would be a really good match. But I can get behind AJ and Punk. I think that would be a fitting final match for him. Joseph Stewart. What's going on, Joseph? Were you a fan of the scene in Batman Begins where the bats were flying around Bruce Wayne in the Batcave? Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool visual. Not one of the best scenes in the movie or anything, but I dig. Also, how long do you think Kota Ibushi will be out? Kota Ibushi is going to be out for a very long time. He broke the longest, strongest bone in the human body, and he even admits like he is in excruciating pain. The surgery went well, but that is a long recovery. Like, I don't think we see him back in the ring for over a year, maybe close to a year and a half. Like, it's going to be no less than a year before we see him back in the ring, if we see him back in the ring. Were you a fan of Joaquin Phoenix Joker movies? I kind of liked the first one a little bit. I didn't really love it, and I heard horrible things about the second one. I didn't even see it. They said the second one was like a musical. I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. Lord Toran says, with a $10 super chat, have you seen the Batman versus Oh, Joseph, you've got some competition here. We've got another person asking a Batman question. What did he break? He broke his femur. It was a femoral fracture. He says, have you seen the Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie? If not, then I highly recommend it. One of the best DC animated movies. I didn't even know they made that. They made a Batman versus Ninja Turtles movie? I didn't know that. Abyssal Zones, I foolishly looked up your stream title 3 minutes before Raw ended. I was sure we were just seeing the same beatdown that we had seen 100 times before. That's what made it so great. Of course, you assume we're going to see the same fucking shit that we see on this show every single week, and then, boom, they hit you with something different. I'm not going to sit here and complain about that. Believe me, there'll be plenty of time to complain about this if they fuck this up. But right now, how could I be upset about that? We talk about how, like, these shows, so many weeks, these shows sort of blend together because it's all the same. There's this sameness to it. And now they did something that actually shocked you. Like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Where's this going to go? Right? Great. Now just follow up on it. I love it. I think it's great. Fried Chicken says, I have new taglines for Raw. Raw is the Black and Stranger Things on Raw. Those are terrible. It's a good thing you don't work for Netflix. I'm sorry, brother. Those are terrible taglines. He says, give me 100 titles in WWE, and I'll make everyone a champion. I'll pull an Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, titles for everyone. Says if he were to wrestle Brock Lesnar in a match, I would purposely do a lot of high spots and overselling. Yeah, I don't think that would end too well for you if you did that. Mr. E1976, here's to the tip jar. Thanks for everything you do, Solomonster. Stay pressing forward. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'm going to try. We've had a lot of shows lately. We got Victor. Buy or sell the best elbow drop. Kyrie or the Macho Man. The Macho Man. Come on, man. The Macho Man is unbeaten. Rojo Bear 24. The thumbnail is very accurate. Seth Rollins really is a waste of TV time. Well, I mean, I took the wasted from GTA and I put it over Seth's face. Sidro. Why is it cheaper to throw a party in haunted houses or in, see, he misspelled his own super chat. Why is it cheaper to throw a party in a haunted house? Because the ghosts will bring the booze. Says, got 3 jokes that'll break you for TNT. JD approved it last night. Oh, do you? You're out to break me? Okay, we'll see. Well, you like Ivan Drago from the Rocky movies? I will break you. Sidro is going to try to break me. Why do I sound like Count Dracula? We got Duff's Vids. Why did the blonde only wear 1 snow boot? Because the weatherman called for 50% chance of snow. And why do you, or what do you call a group of friends that like to eat together? Taste buds. Taste buds. Sidro says, why couldn't the blonde count to 70? Because at 69, it's a bit of a mouthful. Boy, Sidro, man, getting in the gutter here. And my friend helps to shred people's cheese. Oh my God. It's all for the greater Gouda. That deserves booze. That is... Yes, that definitely deserves booze. Oh my God. The Yatagaratsu here, $15 super chat. Thank you for that, Kyrie super chat. In a twisted way, I feel like this actually fits Braun Breaker more. He's a Steiner. This gives more credence to him being unhinged and not having the time or patience for a carefully laid out plan. Dude, I mean, it's like, how many more months is he going to stand in the background? You know, he wants to be front and center. Makes sense to me. I mean, realistically, how many more months of these Vision beatdowns where they just stand in the background while Seth cackles and cuts the same promo over and over again do we really want to sit through? Sidro says, studied dad jokes in college. Majored in psychology. Yeah, you know, that's not one of your better ones. Let's see if he can redeem himself, though, with this next one. He says... says, people playing saxophones on hill near home. They must be musically inclined. If Star Wars was Italian... If Star Wars was Italian... Obi-Wan Kenobi would have trained Linguini Skywalker. All right, you lost me at Linguini Skywalker. Obi-Wan Kenobi is actually very funny, but Linguini Skywalker just killed it for me. Duff's Vid says, what's the difference between Elon Musk and a lemur? Elon made an electric car and the lemur Madagascar. Oh God, Madagascar. Oh my God. The lemur Madagascar. Where do you come up with these? Do you know how many clubs you would be thrown out of in the city here? The Shaunathon. I was wondering if Seth is truly hurt if Brock joins, but you're right. I don't want another ruse with Seth. Nobody should want that. Why would anybody want another ruse? We just got one a few months ago. Broly7, I would love if Becky slaps the hell out of Braun next week, leading to Braun spearing the hell out of Becky after her match. Also, thank God for CFOs. Well, that's not going to happen. That would certainly be another shocking angle, though, if they were to do that. Although not quite as shocking as watching Agent Zero tree slam Alicia Edwards onto a pile of thumbtacks last night at Bound for Glory. The Shaunathon, be awesome if it's actually a babyface turn by the Bronze. Joking, but also not kind of interesting, he says. The fans were certainly cheering for Braun Breaker. I think they enjoyed what they saw. But if Paul Heyman is with them, pretty safe to say that they're... and Bronson Reed is with them as well. He just beat Roman Reigns. I think it's pretty safe to say they're going to be heels. Duff's Vids, what do snowmen call their kids? Children. Get it? Children. Dry Chicken says it's the purge and crime is legal for 12 hours. The MFTs, Death Riders, Judgment Day Wyatt 6 House of Torture. Pick one faction to help you survive, and the others you hunt down. You see, you made a mistake here. You should have put the Don Callis family on here, and then I would have been able to pick them because they have so many members that there's no way I would lose. They have like 18 different people that are part of that faction. I don't really like the options that you've given me here, but I would probably just go with the MFTs. I mean, they have the great Tongaloa. I'm sure he would keep me safe. Duff's Vids says, why are vampires easily manipulated? They're suckers. Boots with the 10. What's going on, Boots? Your thoughts on Konosuke Takeshita winning the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and if this means that we will see less of him in AEW. I think it's great. I talked about the possibility that he would cash in for that opportunity beforehand and not wait for the Tokyo Dome, which he said he wanted to do that. And then they would have him drop the championship to someone like, I thought maybe a Yota Tsuji. He just won the global championship on that same show. So I don't know if it would be him, but the idea that you put the belt on Takeshita for a few months and then at the Tokyo Dome, you have him drop it to one of your, younger, newer names that you're trying to elevate to a top position and then build around that person. And I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be a Yota Tsuji, but he's a name that a lot of people talk about. He's very talented. So I think it's a great idea. Do I think we're going to see less of him in AEW? I mean, maybe a little bit, but I can also see why some New Japan fans might not like it. He's not going to be full-time. He's got 3 contracts. He's not exclusive to New Japan, so he's not going to be touring and doing all the shows. And Tony Khan is going to want him, I'm sure, for the Continental Classic. So I don't think we're going to see that much less of him in AEW. I don't think he's going to have the belt for that long either. I think January 4th he drops it. Sidro says, got pulled over today. I was the officer's first speeder. He leaned in and said, I've been waiting all day for you. I was the officer's first speeder. He leaned in and said, I've been waiting all day for you. I said, got here as fast as I could. I know I'm missing something here. I mean, try to figure out what it is. You're going to have to help me out, buddy. I'm completely lost. Let me tell you something. If those jokes that you're trying to break me with tomorrow night or anything like this, I'm going to win that competition. Duff's Vids, I never understood why they call fake teeth dentures. They missed an opportunity to call them substitutes. Nah, you know, I don't like that as much as I like the diarrhea medication called gonorrhea joke. I think that's much better. He says, no, you're going to break tomorrow for sure. Okay. You seem pretty confident about that. That'll be on TNT. We'll see. We got Exoskeleton. Do you think Sammy's Open Challenge will be won by a returning Ilya Dragunov? And if not, who do you think should win it? I don't think it'll be Dragunov, although that would be a hell of a match. I'm still pitching the idea for it to be Obafemi. I think that would be a great way to debut Oba on the main roster. But I mean, I wouldn't hate Dragunov being the one either. I mean, that would be okay. Dry Chicken says, I double dog dare WWE to put the women's IC title on Maxine Dupree. Well, they're not going to do that when they have AJ Lee waiting in the wings. Boomerang. This sudden turn reminds me of when Edge got booted out of the Judgment Day. Nobody saw that coming either. Joe Law with the $9.99. Seth beats Cody by himself, but what does it cost him? His vision. Showing that Seth got so shook by chasing Cody, the future is now. Seth really doesn't stay in a stable long these days. Yeah, I mean, what was the last faction, like actual faction he was part of? What was the last group he was part of? B-Money04, the 25th anniversary of Rikishi doing it for The Rock just passed. So just wondering if you could rebook that whole angle, how would you do it? Well, I don't know that I would have booked it in the first place. If I could have rebooked it, like who would have been the culprit? Triple H actually did make sense as far as him being the culprit, but you know, who would have stood to gain the most by Austin being put on the shelf? The Rock. The Rock. Because when Austin went on the shelf, The Rock took over as the de facto top babyface in the company, and he had that company with Triple H. He had that company on his back, you know, in 2000. And The Rock obviously had no love lost for Steve Austin, so The Rock. Jace. It's nice that Braun will lead this group and possibly have more promo time. I always enjoy his promos because he sounds like his uncle. He does sound a lot like his uncle. He definitely does. Yes, tactical dish soap. See, so when he says like, "I did it for The Rock," like he did it for himself. It actually makes a lot more sense that way. Dried Chicken says, Solomonster, who are you gonna call? I'm going to call 1-900-909-9900 to get the scoop from Mean Gene. That's what I'm going to call. Tactical Dish Soap. When I got home today, I asked my dog what was up. He said, woof. Then I asked him how his day was. He said, rough. A rough day. Thank you, Tactical Dish Soap. Sidro. Received a blank text from my wife. When I got in from work, I asked, why did you send me a blank text? She replied, because I'm not talking to you. The final boss says, realistically, I think Punk just wins the belt. Well, I guess that would be lame, but yeah, sure, you could do that. Joe Law says, when he was Joel Osteen, Rollins with AOP. Oh, right. AOP and Buddy. But oh God, I forgot about that. That was a long time ago, though. That was during the pandemic era shows, right? Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that either. This Seth Rollins, like in ring as a performer, as a wrestler, is great, right? One of the best in the business. His character sucks. What is even his character? I mean, his character just hasn't been interesting in years. Yeah, I didn't find that version of him to be terribly interesting either. Great wrestler, though. We got 6 out of 10 on the bonus goal, but we are at 552 likes, which means you're going to get at least one round here of Be the Booker. So let's get to it. We got one round to do. It's time to be the Booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the Booker.
Yeah, Ragnarok says Rollins doesn't do well as a faction leader. No, he's not a faction leader. He's a very boring faction leader. If he was going to be part of a faction, I think that would be one thing. But him as a faction leader, it just doesn't work. It's just not interesting. It's very, very, very dull. All right, here we go. See what we can do. We only got one round. We got to make it count. Oh, we got the Natural Disasters. Former tag team champions, Earthquake and Typhoon. Uncle Fred is with us here in Be the Booker. And it will be the Natural Disasters against the Real Americans. Cesaro and Jack Swagger. Boy, they got really over there at the end just before they broke them up. I dig that match. I dig that as a tag team match. That's right, the Shockmaster, Uncle Fred, Typhoon, Tugboat. What other names did he have? I'm sure he had more than that. All right, the women's match, we have Charlotte Flair, one half of the reigning women's tag team champions. Charlotte Flair has taken a back seat in recent months. That won't stop people from bitching when she is eventually pushed in the world title picture again by saying that she's over-pushed, even though she's been on the back burner now for most of this year. But that's the way it goes. When you're pushed, at the top level like that for like 97% of your career, unfortunately, that's what happens. Charlotte Flair going to go one-on-one with Wendy Richter, another former women's champion. That's like a generational battle right there, Two women from two different eras. We're going well here. Things are going well. We need the big finish. We need the big finish in the main event. We got a pretty big pick right here. We got the former AEW World Champion, Swerve Strickland. He swerves when he drives. Yes. But who will he be wrestling? Swerve Strickland is going to be wrestling Cash Wheeler of FTR. Is it a main event on Collision? Sure. But it would be a very good wrestling match. I'm feeling very generous, so I will give it the bell. We got our clean sweep. I feel like that's basically what I just booked. I just booked a Collision card is what I booked. I booked the Natural Disasters against the Real Americans. I booked Charlotte Flair against Wendy Richter, and I booked Swerve Strickland against Cash Wheeler. It's the kind of show where Tony Khan would be on Twitter at 7:57 p.m. posting that you should all tune in at 8 o'clock to watch another great episode of AEW Collision on TBS or on TNT and Max. We got a Swerve Strickland Cash Wheeler main event tonight. So what do you think? How many tickets are we selling to that show, huh? How many tickets are we moving for that show? Right? Probably not too many. All right, thank you guys for hanging out with me here for a slightly earlier than usual Raw review, but we are back to normal next week. Raw's back in the States. So that means I'll be live in my usual time around 11 p.m. Eastern. Duff's Vid says scientists got bored after watching the Earth turn for 24 hours. So they called it a day. They were pooped, man. They were exhausted. Daddy Ugarte says 750 tickets. That's actually more than I thought you were going to say. Well, they'll claim 2,500 until the state puts out the real numbers, and then we find out that it was 437. Navy 4181 says, watch Becky Lynch get replaced by Michelle McCool. Hey, it's happened before. Poor Matt. Poor Matt had a good thing with the Undertaker podcast, but, hey, that's how it goes. But I'm sure everybody is enjoying Undertaker and Michelle McCool on their new podcast, right? I'm sure everybody is loving it, just like Michelle McCool was loving life when she was first introduced in WWE. Remember those vignettes? Michelle McCool, they would show her like like roller skating. She's loving life. That was the tagline at the end of all the vignettes. Michelle McCool is loving life. Matt got screwed. Matt got screwed. I tell you what, Matt was very diplomatic in his response. He could have handled that a lot worse. He handled it, I thought, with class. But did he get screwed? Oh, he got screwed. He got screwed. He got screwed. He got fucked worse than a hooker in Tijuana. But you know what? That's what happens. I got a good laugh, though. Undertaker, I think, on one of his recent podcasts said that to put things to rest. You know, I've never used in my career. I've never used or exerted any kind of influence or... Give me a fucking break, dude. Give me a break. Please. Power Spying Games. By the way, is it really that, like all joking aside, like I see so many people complaining about how much worse that podcast is with them co-hosting it together. The only one, I saw the one they did with Kurt Angle, which I enjoyed. I thought that was actually a really good interview, but I mean, I don't really listen to the podcast, so I can't say. Is she that much worse as his co-host? Like, does she add anything to the interviews? Is it a case where she just kind of talks over people? Like, what is it that people seem to really, really dislike about it? Power Spying Games, though, says, I didn't watch Crown Jewel on Saturday. I was at Edinburgh Comic-Con. I met the likes of Sting, Kevin Nash, Ted DiBiase, and Lita. Interesting. You better meet Sting while you can. This is the last year he's actually doing meet and greets with the face paint on. So in the future, starting in 2026, you'll be getting Real Estate Steve. You won't be getting Sting anymore. No more face paint. I bet Undertaker has a Michelle McCool tattoo on his ass cheek. Well, at least he knew enough not to get another one on his throat. I'm sure that sucked, getting that lasered off. She spends more time arguing with Undertaker about what he forgot at the grocery store than rest. Oh, that sounds like a riveting podcast. I can't wait to not listen. That's right, Steve Borden. Starting next year, you get to meet Steve Borden. Sting will be no more. Did you see this beard that he's been growing? It's getting longer and bushier every time I see a photo of him. Old man Sting. Taker seemed more comfortable with Matt. Dude, of course he did. He's doing a podcast with his wife. Like the stories that he tells mostly, like when he has his friends, like when he used to have his friends on the old podcast, he had like Godfather on, he had Midian. Like he would tell stories about them going out like after the matches and going to strip clubs and all the trouble they would get into and the drinking they would do and the partying they would do and the craziness. So he's sitting there shooting the shit with another guy telling these stories as compared to him sitting there with his wife. Like, of course, he's going to hold back on certain things and it's not going to be as fun to listen to. Did I see the tweet Scott Steiner made about what happened on Raw using Steiner math? No, I did not. Did he tweet about what happened at the end of the show? Like, I went to go see The Undertaker's one-man show. God, when was it? It had to be Tampa, because that was the last WWE event I went to. It was the Royal Rumble in Tampa last year. And he did his show, and it was, you know, I mean, it was this kind of stories that you would expect about, you know, getting into trouble with his BSK buddies. And he told a story about Midian getting drunk in his house and projectile vomiting all over the walls. I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But like, you know, that kind of stuff, like guy shit, you know, that he would find funny. All the stuff that I'm sure he's not talking about on his podcast now with his wife. I think Matt should start doing a podcast with Kane. So, you know, that way he could turn on The Undertaker and start doing it with The Undertaker's brother. Carrie with the $9.99. Thank you, Carrie. Did you know Ben Affleck was going to do his Batman movie and it would have featured Jared Leto as the Joker and Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn? Okay, well, what happened to it? He was going to do one and he decided not to? I bet there's no more Jack Daniels for the pot. Well, that's the other thing, yes. So when he did his stage show, he has a table, and there is a bottle of Jack Daniels and a little shot. I think it was like a shot glass. And every now and then he would take a shot of Jack Daniels and he would keep telling stories. And I don't remember if he did any drinking on the podcast with Matt, but again, he's not doing that shit with his wife. They're going to talk about how, you know, he forgot to take the dog out the night before and he shit all over the floor. Kane doesn't seem like he has interesting stories like Taker does. I'm sure he doesn't. He's a politician now. He has to be very careful with the kinds of stories that he tells. I'm sure that would actually be a very boring podcast. Steiner did tweet. All right, let me check this real quick. Apparently Scott Steiner tweeted. And I need to see what this man tweeted about. Big Papa Pump. So we are sure that this is his official Twitter account, because there's a fake one for there was a fake one for Sid for many years that people thought was real, and now that I believe the person who was running it converted it into what used to be Bob Holly's old account. Bob Holly is not on social media anymore. He used to be. It was at the Bob Holly, and I think the person who runs it supposedly is the same person who was running the fake Sid one, and so it's hard to tell who's real and who's not. All right, here we go. So Scott Steiner, wow, there's a lot here. He did tweet about what happened here on Raw tonight. Says, so let me break it down for all you dummies that don't understand what just happened. Says, you take Seth Rollins, the so-called visionary, and you put him in the ring with Braun Breaker, a genetic freak. But what Seth didn't calculate was the betrayal quotient. Now let's do the math. Seth thought that he had a 100% chance of survival with Braun at his side. But what he didn't know is that Braun's got a 66 2/3% loyalty when you factor in family bloodlines, and the other 33 1/3% is pure rage. So now Seth's sitting there asking, why? I'll tell you why. Because Braun Breaker's not here to play backup. He's here to take over. He's the dog-faced destroyer. And now the leash is off. So Seth, you took your eye off the math. You had a 141 2/3% chance of getting betrayed. And now you're just another statistic in the Steiner equation of pain. There's no way that Scott Steiner wrote that. There's no fucking way he wrote that. There's no way that I believe that Scott Steiner actually wrote that. It's much better when you actually hear him speak it anyway. I find it very hard to believe that he actually wrote that, though. We got Joseph Stewart. Were you a fan of Julian McMahon as Dr. Doom in the Fantastic Four movies with Jessica Alba? Didn't see it. Did not see it. I am curious, though, who is playing Dr. Doom in this next Fantastic Four movie. I saw the new Fantastic Four movie, the one with Pedro Pascal. And there is a Dr. Doom, a Victor Von Doom cameo there at the very end. I don't know who the actor playing him in this next movie is going to be. The Chop Sports and Gaming, WWE should add 2 to 3 young guys or a girl and make the Vision Group a youth movement, taking over the old guard. Who would you add? Well, I mean, again, if Austin Theory is factored into things, then, I mean, it sounds like he might be a possibility. You could do someone like an Obafemi. You can have, I mean, if you want to have a female in there, I guess you could bring somebody up on the female side from NXT. Maybe a Jordan Grace. I mean, they have plenty of younger talents. It's just a matter of finding the right people, that fit with that group. Oh, it's Robert Downey. Is it Robert Downey Jr.? Oh, I didn't know that. Wait, they have Iron Man playing Dr. Doom? Whose idea was that? Why is Iron Man playing Dr. Doom? That's weird. All right. Well, I guess we'll see. Power Spying Games with the 666. Uh-oh. It's the mark of the beast. Says, I also met Brandon Routh, Superman, in Superman Returns, Tara Reid, Shannon Elizabeth, and Billy Piper from Doctor Who. Very cool. Shannon Elizabeth, huh? Yeah, there were some good days with Shannon Elizabeth. How's she looking these days? I don't think I've seen a recent photo of her. Uffman Entertainment says, one more Be the Booker for 10. Oh, yes. Look at that. How about that? I didn't even notice. We did, in fact, hit the goal. Look at that. Speaking of bigoted right-wing morons, did you see Dustin Rhodes showing his ass on social media today? Says Oz and Glorious. Disappointing. I don't follow Dustin Rhodes on social media, so no. I did not. We got Power Spying Games. Yes, I just read the super chat. Thank you, brother. Joseph Stewart. Robert Downey Jr. is playing Dr. Doom. Yes, Power Spying Games. Thank you, brother. I wouldn't miss you. I got you covered. Joseph Stewart. What is Nathan Frazier? He says, what if Nathan Frazier is a part of the Vision? Nathan Frazier is a part of the Vision. I only want people in the Vision that they are serious about pushing at a high level. And Nathan Frazier is a very talented wrestler. He's fun to watch. I don't see them pushing him at a high level. So if they're serious about pushing him at that level, then sure, I could see that, but it's not happening. So I would rather use that spot for someone else. I don't think he's the best fit for that. Joseph says, were you a fan of Jessica Alba? Was I a fan of Jessica Alba? I am a fan of Jessica Alba. Yes, I am. Wasn't it a Jessica Alba show where Lita broke her neck? Was that Dark Angel show back on Fox years ago where Lita was on there? She did some kind of stunt and ended up breaking her neck. I think that was a Jessica Alba show. All right, well, you guys, man, unlocked. You unlocked Be the Booker, which means that we... No drum roll, not yet. We're not there yet. All right, we got to add some stipulations here. Have I seen Denise Richards? Oh, yes, I have. I wish I hadn't. Okay, here we go. Here we go. We got Kennel from Hell. Why? Why are we doing that? We had the Punjabi prison the other night. Now we have to do the Kennel from Hell. You know, the Kennel from Hell is basically a Punjabi prison match. It's just a different type of cage. Very, very similar. I guess we're going to do Kennel from Hell with the tag teams. Never has there ever been a Kennel from Hell tag team match. Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. We have Swerve for the second time tonight. All right, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, man. Swerve in Our Glory. Remember that run? Remember when they were tag team champions? Swerve in Our Glory. Oh, no. Against Harlem Heat 2000. Stevie Ray and Big T. In a Kennel from Hell match. It's awful. Awful match. There might be some people who can make that Kennel from Hell work. This is not the right combination of people. That just doesn't work. Man, there will be no clean sweep here in round number 2. But we're not done yet. So we got On a Pole, bro. On a pole, bro. I got a great idea, bro. We're going to put a pole in the corner. All right. Let's see. See how this turns out. The only question is, what is going to be on the pole? I don't know. We have Timeless Toni Storm. One of the pillars these days. She is a pillar. You have 4 pillars in AEW. She's one of the pillars. Timeless Toni Storm in a pole match against the Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler. Still trying to figure out what we're actually putting on this pole. I have booked a match that I am very much, legit. Like, we have booked a match that I am very much looking forward to at the House of Glory show on November 15th at the big event. Well, the big event is that day. And then the arena that's there on site, we're doing a show that night. And I, as the commissioner, have booked for the first time ever, Shayna Baszler. We're bringing Shayna Baszler into House of Glory. And we're putting Shayna Baszler in the ring with Maki Ito. This is going to be good. You talk about a clash of styles, man. It doesn't get any more different than Maki Ito and Shayna Baszler. I don't know who I should fear for the most. But I'm going to enjoy calling that one. That's for sure. Shayna Baszler and Maki Ito. Where else are you going to find a match like that? Don't you love it when I get to be the booker in real life? This is what you end up with. This is what happens. And our main event here is going to, yes, right, Solomonster is better than Adam Pearce. You bet your ass I am. You're not going to find a match like that on Raw. We got a Texas death match in the main event here. It's going to get bloody. It's going to get violent. We have the American Nightmare, the WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. Gee, Cody in the main event. I've never heard that one before. In a Texas death match, Cody Rhodes will be defending his championship against Mr. Iguana. Oh my God. You put Layesca in a Texas death match? Cody is not making it out of there alive. Cody Rhodes has no idea what he has gotten himself into. Cody Rhodes and Mr. Iguana in a Texas death match. I love it. I wish I could have booked that in Hog. Tell me you wouldn't want to see that match. Tell me your interest would not be piqued in seeing that match. Joseph says, would you like to see an Uncle Howdy and Alexa Bliss pairing? I think we're going to get it at some point. It's not a matter of whether I would like to or not. I'm kind of indifferent towards it, but I just feel like it is something that will naturally happen at some point. Didn't Demonito kill Yeska? Yes, but Yeska regenerated. Micah James, Robert Downey Jr. themed heel after Iron Man was killed off in Avengers Endgame. Well, thanks, bro. I didn't see it. I guess I have no reason to watch it now. Thanks, Micah. Thank you, Micah. Joseph Stewart, how would you book Alexa Bliss to align with Uncle Howdy? I mean, how would I do? I mean, I haven't really thought that far ahead or been that interested in seeing it to the point where I was fantasy booking it in my head, but I'm sure it would not be difficult to come up with some way that they end up linking up together. Perhaps Alexa is in some sort of distress and she's in a bad situation and she has nobody around to help her, and the lights go out and the Wyatts appear and they come to her aid. They come to her aid because they share a spirit. They feel compelled to come to this woman's aid because of the history that she has with one Bray Wyatt. Dry Chicken says, Timeless Tony Storm against Shayna Baszler with a taser hanging on the pole. Sure, that works. Joseph says, did you know Lady Gaga played Harley Quinn in Joker 2? I did know that, yes. I did know that she was the co-lead on that movie. I can't speak to the job that she did as an actress in the movie. I just didn't have any interest in seeing the movie, and then I saw the reviews, and I had even less of an interest in seeing the movie. Wait, are you serious, Solo, that you haven't seen Endgame? Yeah, no, the only Avengers movie I saw was the first one. I could see it to turn Alexa heel on Charlotte. Yeah, but the Wyatts are baby faces, though. Bliss Fan says, just reveal that Alexa was always a part of them from the shadows as co-leader and make her the Fiendess. The Fiend. Wait a minute. The Fiendess? Is that what you would call her? The Fiendess? Then she has to wear a mask, though, right? Because the Fiend had a mask. You're going to put a mask on Alexa Bliss? Why would you do that? I don't know too many people who would look at Alexa Bliss and the first thought they would have is, you know what you're missing? We need to put a mask on you. It seems like a completely unnecessary, terrible idea. I know. I find that so funny. The Fiendess. It's like when Al Bundy went to Washington, Married with Children, to protest Psycho Dad being taken off the air, and he had to address a session of Congress. And he begins his speech by addressing them as senators and senatorittes. Vince McMahon used to have women that were dressed up. Remember when they used to have those little carts come down the aisle for the entrances, and the girls would come up and they would unhook the 3 ropes so the person could step off the cart? They were called the fedorettes. They were actually called fedorettes. Alexa could be La Grande Americana. What was the luchador that Mickie James dressed up as on SmackDown there for a while? God, she dressed up as like a luchador. I forgot what they called her. Alexa might have been involved with that whole thing. I think Alexa Bliss was involved with that whole thing. Oh God, I forgot what they called her though. Joseph says, what if Kiana James joins the Wyatt Six? How would you book Kiana James? I wouldn't. Kiana James does not belong. Kiana James is like her character is the complete polar opposite of the Wyatt Six. She has no business being in the Wyatt Six. Ah, there we go. Mickey was La Luchadora. That's right. La Luchadora. And Joseph says, is it true that Bray Wyatt created Uncle Howdy for Bo Dallas? Yes. That is who was supposed to play and currently is playing Bo Dallas, or playing Uncle Howdy as Bo Dallas. That was, in fact, the plan. That's right. La Luchadora helped Alexa retain the SmackDown Women's Championship on the first SmackDown of 2017, as far as her return. Well, we'll see. We'll see if Alexa Bliss eventually ends up as the Fiendess. And they have a horror mask that they put on her. Thank you for all the fun questions and hanging out with me here on a Monday night. I'm going to be with you live on JD's channel tomorrow. We have Tuesday Night Titans episode 116. I guess we have something to talk about now, plus all the shows of the weekend. And then Wednesday, I'm back here with you. Evidently, I was mortified when I was informed of this last week because I didn't realize that Dynamite... There is a 3-hour block of AEW on Wednesday night. It is Dynamite from 8 to 10, and then basically Collision from 10 to 11. I am not sure what I'm doing. I mean, normally I would go live by 10:30, so I may just wait and watch the whole thing and go live after 11. But my fucking God, there is no weekly wrestling show that needs to be 3 hours. But they're 3 hours this week, so I'll be live on Wednesday night, and then Friday night we have SmackDown. Yes, big 3-hour Dynamite. Oh boy. It's all right. We'll probably have more fun here. We usually do. What's your opinion on why Trick wore the TNA title upside down? It's just a thing he was doing to get heat. He did it because he can. He did it because he was showing disrespect to the TNA championship. Joseph says, do you know why Uncle Howdy has not been on TV? I don't know, but he has been noticeably absent, so hopefully it's not an injury. Says you have the Dodgers to thank for this 3-hour Dynamite. Well then, if that's the case, then fuck the Dodgers. I hope they lose. May says there's no way in hell I'm sitting through a 3-hour Dynamite. Well, you better be sitting through a 2-hour sound off. You could ignore the 3-hour Dynamite, but you better be here for the stream. Be well. Stay safe. Check out my Bound for Glory review and episode 933 of the Sound Off as well from this past weekend. Joseph has one last super chat here. Or is it? I don't know. Were you a fan of Jared Leto as the Joker and Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn? I think that they are fine actors. Jared Leto, though, was not my favorite Joker. Margot Robbie, I like her in basically anything I've seen her in. I don't know that I've liked her in anything more than in Wolf of Wall Street, though. There you go, May says, I would literally sit through a 6-hour sound off. Well, hopefully we don't have any of those either, but that's more like it. See, that's what I like to hear. Yes, Grant says, I'm a fan of Margot Robbie in just about anything. Or not in anything at all. On that note, I'll see you guys real soon for more Sound Off here on the channel. Until then, take care, guys.